And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're taking a look at a very interesting game called Amber Route. This is a game in which you are delivering amber along a route that is covered with all sorts of bad guys, including some monsters, including a nasty tree stump and all sorts of monsters. But you have help from these Slavic gods and different people who will help you fight them along your way. How do you play this game? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's a modular board here. You'll see the different puzzle pieces come out. This is the one that they tell you to start with, the board that I have set up. But you can set this board up and you can make the game shorter or longer, actually, based on how many of these pieces you put in. Players are racing from one side to the other. The first person to get here is going to get 5 points. Players are also going to get 3 points for amber. And by the way, I really like the pieces here they use for amber because they're all different little pieces and such. Over the course of the game, you're going to get pieces of amber. When you get 3 of them, you discard 2 of them and put 1 on your card. That piece of amber is secured. It can't be stolen from you, and that's what counts at the end of the game. Players will also lose points for if someone else gets there. You'll lose 1 point for every space you are away from it. And as the game progresses, you have rewards cards, and if you don't use those, you'll get points for those. But mostly your points are going to come from amber. So how do you go about getting that? Well, players are going to have a handful of these power cards that they're going to be able to play over the course of the game. By the way, love the very unique artwork on these cards. And players will also have these escorts. So you start with 3 of them, and you can get more. At the beginning of each turn, a player can draw another power card with a hand limit of 7, or take an escort. Then you get an action. You can take another escort or another power card, or you can move forward. Now, when you move forward on the board, you can move forward 1, or you can move forward 2, but if you move forward 2, you have to pay 1 of your escorts. Then you're going to see where you are. Now, if you land here in a city or a castle, some good things, you can get more escorts there and such. But most of the time, you'll be landing on this unfamiliar terrain, in which case you'll draw an encounter card. Now, you look at where you are. So here I'm in the mountains. There's a mountain symbol there, that's it. Neither symbol here matches the mountain symbol, so this is an easy encounter. If I had been on this spot here when I drew this encounter, it would be a hard encounter because the trees match. If I had landed down here, it would also be a hard encounter because the trap symbol would match. And if I had landed all the way down here on this spot, it would be a legendary encounter because the tree and the trap symbol both match. Now, when you have an encounter, there are 4 different kinds of encounter cards that you can get. There are the traps, which is what I just drawn. There are the enemies. These are monsters you have to fight. And there are ghosts, that's this symbol here, that you have to sneak past to get by this ghost. So this ghost here, this really weird looking blue guy, you have to sneak to get past him. Now, the best thing that can happen to you is a gift card. This is great. You're going to roll dice equal to the number of players, and then you get to pick first, so you might get amber. You might get to move your guy forward 2 spaces, or take 2 escorts, 1 escort, 2 cards, 1 cards, depending on the results that are rolled. Unfortunately, you're probably going to run into one of the other things. First of all, we have a trap card. Now, a trap card, you're going to need to roll a certain number of dice that are the same to bypass a trap. If it's an easy trap, you just need to roll 2 that are the same. If it's a hard trap, 3, and if it's a very hard trap, 4. Now, this is going to be hard to pull off since you get to roll a total of 1 die. However, you can play cards from your hand to let you play extra dice depending on the terrain that you're in. So let's say I was in this ghost terrain, which means I need to roll 3. At least it wasn't a trap, so it's not a legendary. I don't need to roll 4 of the same kind. I need to roll 3. And so I play from my hand these 3 cards. They are, this one here is 2 extra dice in any location. This one here is 2 dice in this location. Actually, I'm just going to play these 2. So that's 4 dice plus the one I get automatically, so that's 5. So I'm trying to roll 3 of a kind here. So I rolled a 6 and a 6 and a 2, 3, and a 4. Well, that's bad. However, I can spend 2 of my escorts to each of those to raise this die by 1 each, and that becomes a 6. Hooray, I've beaten the encounter. The same thing happens if you have to sneak by a ghost. When you sneak by a ghost, you simply have to roll higher than a certain number. Like if it's a hard ghost, you have to roll higher than a 9. The legendary higher than a 12. An easy ghost higher than a 5. If it's a monster, you have to do a certain number of damage to that monster. So if I was fighting this monster here, for example, these thieves, I would have to roll on an easy encounter. I have to hit them twice, which would be 4s through 6s. A medium encounter, I have to hit them 3, and then 4. And then if I don't hit the monsters, they will hit me back. And the number of dice that they roll is shown on the little card here, and how much damage they do. If I beat them, I get rewards. Like if I beat a legendary monster when I'm fighting, I get 2 amber, and then an escort or a power card. If I beat a legendary ghost, I sneak by him, I get 2 amber. Same thing. But if I lose, I'm going to lose 4 power cards from my hand. And if I get into a trap, then I can't move on the future, but I can. But if I beat it, I get amber and stuff. Also, if you beat the card itself, it will either give you an instant reward. This lightning bolt here gives me an extra escort to use in the future, or I can use it in the future. If I don't use it, I'll get extra points. But if I do use it, this one time in the future, I can use an extra die when fighting in mountain regions. And there's lots of different cards that will give you extra dice, maybe an instant extra 2 cards, an extra die. I can re-roll 2 dice. So there's all different cards and rewards that you can get. When you're done fighting your ability, if there is another person on the same spot, you can fight them. And that's basically just a showdown where you'll play one card that matches the terrain, and players will play these cards and roll dice, and best roll wins, and they can steal a piece of unsecured amber from the other player. That's how you play. I already mentioned how you get points to win. As soon as someone gets to the city at the end of the board, we count up points, and whoever has the most is the winner. There's a lot of symbology in the game. Once you understand how to play it, it's very easy. And the rules were written pretty well, but I mean, they were translated. But I mean, traps, you need to roll dice that are the same. Monsters, you need to roll a certain number of hits. And sneaking past the ghosts, you need a certain number. It's not that difficult, and it can be. And many of the times encounters comes down to pure luck. But you also have these escorts. You want to make sure you have a bunch of those tokens so that you can manipulate dice. You want to have amber. Amber can, you can spend amber sometimes to pull you out of a tough situation. And using those reward cards. You want to get a bunch of those reward cards because they'll help you later on when you come across that random but unlucky legendary encounter. You beat that random legendary encounter, though, that gives you extra amber and extra rewards, and you go on. If there's one part of the game that I don't like, it's fighting other players. It just seems kind of random, and it also drags the game out a bit. I know that it adds some player interaction into the game, but just as you're moving on the board and you're doing these encounters, then fighting another player just seems like an awfully... They're both spending cards. If someone's attacking me, I'm like, all right, fine. I almost wish that part was just completely divorced from this game, and they kept just going after the monsters. The artwork is very humorous and light and interesting. It has a silly feel to it, and I like all the different dice manipulation. There's no way I'm going to claim that this is a deep game. It's not. It's just moving on the path, finding different encounters, rolling for different results on the dice, and manipulating them with previous rewards and amber and escorts. But it's entertaining enough that the game doesn't flow too long, and you can simply just cut out a whole section of the board and make it shorter, and then the game, if game length is a problem. So something different and unique, I like it for that reason. And while it has, it's not the most polished of games, it has minor flaws, it was interesting enough that I enjoyed having fun playing it. Dice Tower Judgment, quirky, but approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool Stuff in stock. Check them out at coolstuffinc.com.
Knock down.